Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Jay's Fit Down podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and today we're going to be talking about the winners and losers of NFL free agency so far. Here, like I said, a lot of moves are still going on, so that is, of course, pending. But so far, I'm just going to give you guys the teams that I think have won free agency so far, and the teams that I think that have lost free agency so far. I just dropped a video with Aaron Freeman, who's the host of the Locked On Falcons podcast, talking about Kirk Cousins and why he was a good fit for Atlanta, and Aaron gave his insight on that. So make sure you check that video out on the channel as well. Especially my Falcons fans. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button right in the right corner of your screen, and follow us on the socials on IG, Twitter, TikTok. We're also on all audio platforms, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast there on audio. So make sure you do that. Check us out there. Now, like I said, so first off, free agency has been very crazy so far. We've had a lot of big moves. I mean, for one, Kirk Cousins obviously going to Atlanta on that 4-year, $180 million deal, and like I said, I talk about that with Aaron in the episode. But then you have Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, and you know, yeah, Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, Christian Wilkins going to the Raiders. So it's a lot. It was a lot of moves, but so far here are my teams that have won and lost free agency. So the teams that I have winners of free agency so far. The number one, the Minnesota Vikings. Now I know where this can get a little weird, but just hear me out, okay? I know where this might sound a little crazy, but the Vikings signed Jonathan Grenard. I believe it was a 4-year, like $72 million deal or something like that. It's like signed him in the 70 million range. Former defensive end for the Houston Texans, had a big year for them last year with double-digit sacks for the Texans. Still fairly young. I mean, and they signed him to a contract there, and yeah, and helping out their pass rush because they know that Daniel Hunter is probably going to leave. Most likely. I mean, and you lose if you lose him, then you're going to need edge rushing help. So I think he was a big pickup. Um, I think he was a big pickup there for the Vikings. I mean, and then they signed Andrew Van Ginkel from the Dolphins, who was a guy that was huge in their defense. Till he had got hurt a little bit towards near the end of the year, but they pick him up. So you're offsetting for the departures of Hunter and DJ Wanham, who are the bigger defensive guys for Minnesota. Now they still have some question marks offensively. I mean, they signed Sam Darnold to be the big bridge quarterback for the year, but with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, so they still have some talented receivers, talented playmakers. Now it's just a matter of can they develop a great offensive game plan because you don't have Kirk Cousins there anymore. So it's like now you're going to need to develop a game plan to where Sam Darnold's going to be able to get the ball out quick to those guys and be able to sustain offensive success moving up and down the field. And I think, arguably, yeah, like the Vikings, I mean, they pick 11th in the draft too, so that's something else to think about. So I mean, so far they're definitely a winner for me in free agency. I like what they've done. So far, and like I said, it's not over yet. So who knows what else they'll be able to do. Next winner up for me is the Philadelphia Eagles, signing Saquon Barkley. Now, where this gets interesting, they signed him to that 3-year, $26 million deal. I mean, it's I mean, he's still a young, good back in this league. One of the better backs last season. He's for the most part was healthy last year compared to his first couple years in the NFL, and the Eagles get a replacement for losing DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders, of course. So they lost those two backs over the last couple of years, and now you bring in Saquon Barkley, behind that offensive line. Who, even though they lost Jason Kelsey, they still got a solid offensive line. Still got AJ Brown. You still got Jalen Hurts. You still got Devontae Smith. Like, I know that the secondary has issues. That they have some spots, and I feel like the Eagles will address that in the draft. Still got guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry in the draft. I can see them picking up. Guys like that. Or whoever. So, in free agency again, it's still only 2 days in, guys. So I expect them to make some more moves to address that. But overall, I like what they did with picking up Saquon Barkley. That was huge for their offense. Getting a guy like him in there who was better than DeAndre Swift and He's elusive in the pass game and the run game with Jalen Hurts back there throwing the football. And I think the Eagles now over this offseason will have a chance to reset and look at themselves as a roster and make the changes they need to make to get to where they need to be as a franchise moving forward. So definitely a winner for me. And I do think that um, like I said, yeah, I do think they still have some more things to improve on, but for the most part, they should be a better team. Offensively, I feel like they should be more consistent next year than what they were this year. You had those lapses in and out, and now you got a guy like Saquon who adds to that dynamic part of the pass catching game out the backfield, takes some pressure off of Jalen Hurts. You know, and moving on to my next winner team is the Houston Texans. Now, the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud, we all know what he did last year, and Tank Dell, all those guys, they're a talented team, this and that and the third. Like, but the Texans, guys, listen, the Texans are going to be a really good football team. I talked about this in a couple of videos now so far this off season, but I say this because they made some good moves in free agency. They made some pretty good moves. Signed Danico Autry to a deal, the former Tennessee Titan. They signed Al Aziz Shire, the former 49er linebacker. So they're adding to that defense. They're continuing to make that defense really good. They signed Lonnie Johnson away, who they signed Lonnie Johnson, who was a former Texans cornerback. He went to the Saints and then he comes back to the Texans. So they're trying to shore up that defense, and I really like what they're doing. And they from the big move that everybody's talking about is them trading for Joe Mixon, right? So you got Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon in the backfield. Devin Singletary goes to the Giants. Joe Mixon comes here. They trade for him, and this is a guy who was a solid. He's a solid back. He was a solid back for Cincinnati last year. In the past couple years, I mean, even though he's not Derrick Henry or he may not be Saquon, but I still think it was a good get for them, and so now the offense is going to continue to improve. CJ Stroud's going to be in his second year. Tank Dell's going to be in his second year. Will Anderson defensively is going to be in his second year. So I really like what Houston is doing and how they're addressing the team. And so I think that uh, they're going to be a formidable franchise coming up. I know it's weird saying about the Houston Texans, but I really think they can be contenders. Well, they already made the playoffs this past year, so I do think that the ceiling, I mean, is going to continue to increase for Houston as long as they continue to perform, stay healthy, and get the right guys in the building, continue to get the right guys in the building through draft and free agency. I mean, this team is looking like they're going to be a contender in the AFC South for many years. You know, so I'll say those are my winners for free agency so far. My losers now, I got the Miami Dolphins. For one, you lose Christian Wilkins to the Raiders. He signed that big 4-year, $110 million deal. So you let him walk. I know they weren't going to be able to pay him, but you let him walk. You let Andrew Van Ginkel walk. I mean, like you let Robert Hunt walk, offensive lineman. So it's like, the Dolphins, and the bad thing is their top edge rushers, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, um, Bradley Chubb will be coming off an injury season. So they're not going to be at their optimal best to start off the 2024 season. So it's not ideal that you lose your big interior presence on the defensive line and Christian Wilkins and Andrew Van Ginkel, a very solid player defensively in your rotation at the linebacker position. Not very good for the Dolphins so far. Hopefully they can continue to address positions that of need for them, and hopefully they can make up for that. But it's hard when the salary cap position isn't the best for them either. Like a few teams. So we'll see how they do with that. But yeah, they're definitely a loser for me for agency. And hey, we'll see what they do. I mean, like I say, that was a problem for them defensively going down through the stretch. It was the pass rush against Kansas City. It was lacking, and you can tell they were missing those guys out there, and Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. So hopefully they can get that addressed for their sake. And my last loser so far of NFL free agency um, would have to be the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have not done anything um, so far this offseason. They haven't done anything as far as free agency. They haven't done anything so far. They haven't signed anybody of note. Like they didn't sign. A lot of people thought they were going to sign Derrick Henry, who ended up going to Baltimore. Huge pickup for the Ravens right there. But the Cowboys whiffed on that. Like they have done a lot on a few things. So you let Tony Pollard go to the Titans. I mean, you don't bring him back, so you lose your star running back. Um, you lose your star running back. You lose out the opportunity of getting Derrick Henry to come in there. I mean, you know, and it's seeming like they're going to try to trade Michael Gallup now. That's what I've been hearing. So, from what I've been hearing, yeah, they're Michael Gallup will be on the trade market. So you're possibly talking about trading one of your better receivers, when he's healthy. So I don't really know what the plan is there in Jerry's world for the Cowboys, but they need to figure it out. But we all know we've had this conversation earlier. We all know the Cowboys aren't going to do anything. So is it even worth talking about? Maybe not. But still, just because for the heck of it, they're an NFL team. They're the Cowboys. You got to talk about them. Um, Still, like moves that they should have made and they didn't make. So yeah, I would say those so far are my losers of free agency. I mean, there's some other teams too that made moves and got some good acquisitions that I didn't name here as winners per se because they maybe addressed one position of need, but they didn't completely address some of the areas um, that they really need to shore up. Like for instance, I didn't have the Falcons as a winner because they still have some other spots they need to fill, and like I said, maybe that continues through free agency. Maybe they continue to go after. Maybe they go after Daniel Hunter. Looking for that edge rush, or maybe they go after L'Jarius Sneed, looking for that second corner out there next to AJ Terrell. So that is kind of why some of the teams that have made some moves, I didn't make this cut because I'm still trying to sift through and evaluate how they how they continue to go about their free agency process so far. But to this point in time, those are the teams to me that have had the better free agency signings and just made the better moves to me so far from what I've seen. And there's still a lot more to happen. Who knows what's going to happen with Justin Fields? And, because obviously the Atlanta didn't trade for him, so it's looking like nobody's really interested in him. Is there a chance that he uh, just stays in Chicago? Most likely not. I just don't see the Bears trading that pick. I think they're going to stick with that. Then they're going to pick Caleb Williams unless they choose to sit him behind Fields for the year or whatever. But I mean, that doesn't seem like a likely option either. I still think Chicago's going to trade him at some point to a team. Could be the Raiders. They're a quarterback. I won't say needy, but they could use a quarterback right now. I mean, you got Aiden O'Connell who did play decently last year for them, the rookie. But getting a guy like Justin Fields, hey, if they're willing to throw that in at him, throw that bag at him, and reel him in, then hey. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like the interest is too high around him as of this moment in time. So that's just really what I think so far. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of it plays out. Still a lot more moves to be made, a lot more guys to be going around and to different teams. So just if you guys want to stay updated, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Check us out here on YouTube. Like I said, we're on YouTube right here. We're also on all the audio podcast platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, all that good jazz. So check us out there. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button right here on Jay's Fifth Down, the football podcast. We appreciate you guys and what you do and helping the channel continue to grow. Please continue to help us do that by sharing it with your friends and just staying tuned for what we have in store for you. I'm your host, Jaden. Thank you for tuning in.